his head tilted to the side. So we have the head shape and then we have the shoulder shape. That's the basic shape of the drawing. So I want you to make your head fairly big on the page. And I think how I would start it is just to make like an oval shape of the head, because that's pretty much the shape of his head. Can you guys can't. Can you guys see that when I hold it? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, so yeah, and as you can see, I basically made multiple lines. It's not a perfect circle because this is just a guide. Obviously, he doesn't have a head that's shaped like an oval exactly. So this is just kind of like a guideline for us. We would eventually erase a lot of this stuff. And then I would also make like the shape of his shoulders. So sometimes it helps, like, I'm gonna actually draw a line right here. This is like the edge of my paper. So you can do that. Like, I want you to make it pretty big on the paper, but in order to make it sort of similar to how this photograph is, like if it goes all the way there, you might want to make a line to kind of cut it off, like decide where the ends of the paper are. And so then you can do like a shoulder, some shoulders like this. So you basically have a mass of the shoulder. And you can indicate where the neck is. But because he's kind of hunched over, you're not going to get like this defined skinny neck. His neck kind of almost goes into his shoulders and this like muscle that's above the shoulder. So as you can see, what I've done so far, it's very sketchy. There's lots of different lines happening. And then, so what really helps me in drawing figures is to make axis lines. And when I say that, I mean like lines that go down the middle of the person. So he has his head tilted, so like an axis line would go down here, and it would go also across. If his face was straight, it would obviously be straight. Also, because this is somewhat of a 3/4 view, right? Like he's not completely straight ahead, he's kind of like this. So the axis line is like a little bit off center, you know? So, and it's also curved, right? Because that's why you can kind of see his nose sticking out a little bit. If you look at my face straight on, my nose is basically a flat shape. You only know it's 3-dimensional because of the shading, but you can't see it sticking out, right? Like you can only see it sticking out because this is a highlight and this is darkness. But then when I turn 3/4 view, you can actually see the point of my nose. Obviously from profile, you can see it even more. So that's why the axis line is curved, because that's like the points start to come out. But it's not that curved because he's only slightly 3/4 view. So that's why I would make one axis line going down this way, and then I would make another axis line going this way. Now, if you see what I've done, I made this axis line slightly, the horizontal one, slightly curved this way, because it's like almost straight across, but it's like kind of this weird angle where he's hunched over, but then he's kind of got his chin up a little bit. He's not really looking down. If he was looking down, then the axis line would be more the opposite. But he's hunched, and then he's kind of like almost got his head tilted slightly up, I would say. It's like either up or completely horizontal, but that's why I did that. So this is what I have so far. I have to see if I will be able to erase. Yeah, actually I kind of can. I was trying to see if this colored pencil erases. So then it always helps to just kind of like get the hairline in, because that starts to shape it into an actual human head and less of like an egg. So if you follow the hairline, it's basically almost straight across there with a slight bend, and then you've got like a part here, and then it points up to this sort of like mountain shape. And you can kind of fill that in with just sort of scribbliness in that direction. And then you can just follow around, like sticking the ear in there. But see how rough I am? At this point, I'm just finding my way. And so I'm not making exact lines. I'm gonna probably erase a lot of it. And then the beard, of course, kind of gives you a map for the shape of the face, especially because he's smiling, he's got a pretty round face. And the beard really like takes away some of his angles. So in some ways, like this face is kind of challenging for that reason. Like actually a more angular face is easier because you just have more like clear angles to follow. A round face is a little more challenging, but we'll just work our way through it. You can start to sketch in like where, I don't know if we're going to get to detail of the whole, you know, tie and jacket and everything, but I think it helps in terms of proportion to just like sketch it in really generally, to just tell yourself kind of where you're going with it. So it's very rough. Maybe I'll pause for a minute to make sure everybody's caught up. Anyone want to show me it so far? I know it's like very barely gotten started, but can you guys hold it a little closer? Okay, actually farther. Okay, so Benina actually farther back. Can you hold it like up more? Like reach up? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that looks like a pretty good start. I just, be careful with the horizontal axis line that it's not too high, but I think once you start doing the eyes, you'll realize that. And then Valerie, let me look at yours. Can you hold it up more too? Yeah, I think his face is a little bit longer though than what you have. So I think you need to lengthen it, and then your horizontal axis line, you have very like a dramatic slope. I don't think so. The horizontal axis line is basically where his eyes go. So that's what I'm drawing. So it's only a slight diagonal. It's not a really dramatic diagonal. So yeah, let's just kind of do a little bit of editing right now and a little revisions to try to get that a little better. So then I think before we get to the eyes and stuff, I think putting in the beard will really start to shape the face. So really follow the line, like you can kind of neaten up the hairline, like be a little bit more decisive. Like that's how I do things. I kind of sketch it as, make it really sketchy and then kind of refine the lines and erase the lines that aren't as necessary. So if I define the hairline and I just follow it down, his cheekbone comes out the slightest bit, but it's not very much. And then it goes down, and then it comes back out for this like fleshiness here, but also his beard. And then it comes down to the chin. And then it goes back around here. And then same on this side, you know, you can just basically follow the map that the lines create. This starts at this part. I mean, that's a good starting place, this side part. And then it comes down the diagonal. Then definitely don't forget this space in between his ear and the beard. So that goes down, and then it just like curves around like an oval. So I think even if you start shading in the beard, it will start to shape the face a little bit to get going on it. And as you can see, like this is sort of like telling me how to do the rest of it. Once you get that in, you realize, oh, maybe this should come out more, and that goes like that. And you just look at the lines, especially at the beginning stages. It's better to just look at it as a series of shapes and a series of lines and not really think about it even like as a person. So yeah, I think I'm gonna shade in the beard a little bit more because it helps define and look at the shapes of the beard. It's kind of like comes out to this point thing here before it turns into that mustache. Beards are hard. I mean, this guy's face is pretty hard because he doesn't have any angles really, and because he's smiling, which is a much harder expression than a serious expression. And then his beard is a little crazy. You know, like everybody's beard is kind of different. Plus, like us being women, it's like, I don't know, beards. We don't have beards, so it's like very like foreign territory. It's always kind of like easier to draw people that look like yourself. And this guy just definitely does not look like any of us. So as I'm drawing the beard, it's like kind of starting to tell me where the mouth is gonna go. That's why I'm kind of drawing around the mouth. You don't have to do this way. You could do the mouth first and then do the beard, but I feel like it's kind of a good map. and I'm doing it roughly, like I can still change the shape a bit. That's probably enough for now on there. I think it helps to do like a line. So for the mouth, if you line up the bottom of the teeth with the jawline, it's kind of a straight line. So it might help to draw another axis line going across here, because that's pretty much going to tell you where the smile is. That's like where the bottom of the teeth are. But we're not at the point of making that detail. We're just kind of like starting to find our way into where that mouth is. So like you can see it's sort of like a ghost of a mouth is starting to appear, but I'm purposefully not making it really defined because I don't even know yet if it's quite in the right place. We're just finding our way into it. Maybe I'll pause. I don't know if I'm going too fast. This is working out better though, this black colored pencil. Anyone want to show me? Can you hold it up a little more? Like up more? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's looking good. Just be careful. Like if that's kind of the ghost of the mouth, it's looking really low in relation. I think you need to define where the jawline is because he does have more of an oval face than what you have. And even though he's smiling, like you can see that these are where his jaws are. And they're up here. And then the mouth lines up with it. So I think your mouth is too low and you need to define the edges of the face more. Oh, you're showing it to me. Okay, the only thing is your face is looking more like it's completely straight ahead, whereas his is more turned. So you really need to make sure that this axis line is like not all the way in the middle. You kind of need to shift everything over a little bit. Because right now it's almost like, so if I'm mimicking his pose, to me, he's kind of like this, kind of. And you have him almost more like more to the side, but like his face is straight ahead. So I guess I'll keep going. You can always catch up. I'm going to start with, again, kind of like finding the ghosts of the features, like they're going to slowly start to appear, and each thing tells me the next. So like if the mustache does end here, the face is about there, then obviously the nose, that's touching the mustache. There's no space in between. So you know that the nose is pretty much above the mustache. And at first, I'm just gonna draw like a little oval where the nose is, because if you draw the whole thing, it's pretty much like an oval. Like that. I don't know if you can see that. It's just telling me where it is. but then obviously it does kind of like point down, you know, where this comes down, and then the nostrils go up. But you want to make sure you don't make it have too flared nostrils. And it's hard with this picture because you really don't see a lot of contrast. Like his nose almost becomes one shape. So you have to almost squint your eyes. You could even, like, if you had this picture on your phone, you could always like up the contrast to try to make it have more definition. Like in my drawing, I kind of up the contrast. You can see like there's a little bit more light and dark that you see because, you know, there had to be some shading. But as you can see, I kind of divided the nose into shapes. So I first did this shape generally, but then obviously everyone has kind of a bulb on the end of their nose, and they have two nostrils, and then they have this whole bridge partially because his nose is wide, like he doesn't have a very like pointy bridge. It's pretty flat, but also when you smile, like if I smile, this kind of widens too, just naturally because our muscles get pulled. So that really makes this like flat. So it's kind of like a wide form. It's not like, you know, somebody who has like a nose job or something, it's like super skinny. This is very wide. And then once you have that in there, that kind of tells you where these cheek muscle wrinkles go, right? Obviously, everybody, when they smile, get creases there. So one comes, and it always pretty much comes from the top of your nostril. Like no matter what face you have, like if I smile, my face goes here. You know, everybody has that, even little kids with no wrinkles, obviously when they smile, that's how their muscles go. And then you can see like I barely put the ear, but now that I put the nose in, I'm noticing that the bottom of the earlobe is almost exactly lined up with the bottom of the nose. It's actually maybe the slightest bit lower, but it's like very slight. So then I can make that adjustment, and I think the ear also sticks out more. I had it a little too close to the head, and I think the beard comes out more. So I'm going to make that adjustment to make the ear come out more. But, you know, I haven't done like the details of the ear because I just don't really feel ready for that yet. And there is another ear that you can barely see on this side. So then I'm kind of going to exaggerate the cheek muscles. If you can see in this, like when anybody smiles, obviously it gets a cheek muscle. Like I have like a lot of cheek when I smile. His are a little smaller, I feel like, but they form like a little circle. But it's really subtle because the contrast is so low. So especially when you're starting to draw, even if you don't have access to be able to up the contrast on your phone, it kind of helps to up the contrast in your mind. So there is this circular shape that's what helps create the smile on both sides. The muscles turn into a circle. And then there's a muscle up here, and that kind of like goes into the eye socket and like the creases underneath his eyes. At first, when you're first drawing, like the person might be a little more like older looking or a little more haggard because you're sort of like increasing the amount of contrast and, you know, the shades and the lines. And then like as you go on and you're more refining it, you can kind of rub it all together and it kind of like makes the person go back to being the age that they're supposed to be. So yeah, I'm adding this little shade. Like right now, as we're doing this, this is very sketchy. I wouldn't even call this like the shading stage, but as you can see, as I'm sketching it, I'm kind of finding values and shades, even though I definitely would still call this more the sketching phase. So now I'm gonna put in the eyebrows. They're pretty thick. They're very wide eyebrows. May, you know, pay attention to the shape of them. I'm still keeping those axis lines. I'm gonna erase them pretty soon, but I'm gonna wait until I have the eyes in. So the eyes are pretty much like almonds, like squished almonds. I think he has pretty almond shaped eyes when he's not smiling, but because he's smiling, obviously everybody's eyes crunch together or like squish together when they smile. So you can kind of make like, you know, almonds that are a little more like crescents, like somewhere in between an almond shape and a crescent shape. And you can start to really think about how things line up. So this edge of the line, if you put your pencil next to the edge of his eye and have it go straight, it kind of bisects this part of his beard. So I think that's pretty right where I have it. This edge of the eye bisects sort of this part of his chin. So I think that's pretty right too. This eye goes to kind of like the other side of his chin. I think that's pretty right. And then this goes almost in the middle of his jawline. So I think that's pretty good. Then the eyeballs, since he's got his head to the side, but his eyes are looking right at the viewer. So the eyeballs are going to be slightly shifted this way so that if you shift it too much, then it looks like he's looking over here. But if you put them right in the middle, it's going to look like he's looking that way. So it should be a little bit to this way. Like, that's my right. I don't know if it's your right. That way it'll look like he's looking at the viewer. And then you can just like color them in for now. We're not going to do the detail on them until later. But I mean, the one detail that you could just get in is that obviously there's a crease. So there's the eye, and then there's like the crease of the eyelid. So you want to have 2 lines. And then you can come back down to the mouth and then start kind of defining that a little bit more. the lips get kind of swallowed by the beard, so it's sort of hard to see exactly how they go. The teeth and stuff, we should just leave till last. But he obviously has these bright white teeth, and then there's like a shadow underneath, like where his tongue and stuff is. So that would just be like dark. And then there's his bottom lip. The mouth is kind of like not going to really come together until we do more shading. And it'll like just look weird until then. So I think this is pretty much like, I would feel like I would be out of the sketching phase. I would probably first like refine. I would double check proportions and see how I feel about it. But if I felt okay, then I would probably go on to what I call the shading phase. And also in doing that, refining, and that's when I would start erasing. Like right now, I think this is, since this is colored pencil, it's not going to erase quite as well as your pencil, because you should be able to get rid of the axis lines completely. I'm not going to be able to, but I can get rid of them enough that you see what I'm getting to. And you can also just like erase, like basically clean up the edges, clean up the lines so that it goes away from a really sketchy zone. Making such a mess with this. I need a new pencil sharpener. It keeps like coming apart. I think I am gonna just add a little bit of the lines to the ear, because that's the only part where we haven't really defined what's happening there. So everyone's ear is really different. I'm actually like really noticing that as we're doing these celebrity portraits, that like even like some of the really glamorous, beautiful celebrities have like very strange ears that you wouldn't even, like they just seem different than the average person. So it's interesting. His ear actually though, I think is kind of more like what I'm used to ears. So his isn't really that abnormal. But so he obviously has this like ridge that goes around and then a shadow underneath the ridge, and then whatever this is called, this kind of like, almost like a wishbone shape. It's like a bow that has these like 2 points at the end. And that comes around, which creates like the hole, which is all shaded in. So again, I'm kind of doing a mixture of sketching and shading. That's how I like to do it. Some people might make it completely all of a line drawing and then separate it, you know, line drawing and then shading, but I kind of like to do it at the same time. So I think I'm gonna pause and make sure everybody catches up to me. We still have 50 more minutes, so we still have a lot of time. Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. I think that, you know, I think as you're doing the shading, the cheek muscles will come into play, but you're kind of changing the expression. I mean, that's okay if you feel like the teeth and stuff are too hard, but you know, he's like closed mouth and you kind of have him not really smiling, where he has this really broad smile. So it makes his cheeks stretch and, you know, it changes the shape of it. Can you hold it a little closer? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see where you're going with it. You have his head a little bit more tilted than, but that's okay. It's not that big a deal. It's not worth changing it. But yeah, I think you have the general expression. And this is all a learning process. Like making it look exactly like this guy is really not the most important thing. Like that's super advanced, you know, like it's hard. But I think the whole point of these is like to just learn how to draw the face. It doesn't have to look exactly like him. So after, I mean, I would still maybe take a little bit more time to just look at it and see what you want to change. But once you have done that, what I would do next is just kind of attack it with getting all the dark tones in. So here it's pretty much like dark, like you have to think about this as a black and white photo. Like actually, I probably should have printed out a black and white version of this, it would have been easier. But obviously my drawing is black and white. So this is gonna be pretty black. This is gonna be as dark as it can be in a black and white photo. And this will be very dark gray. The hair is darker than the jacket, right? And then the beard is like mostly, some of it is as dark as the hair in general, though it's like a tiny bit lighter. Then obviously this would be almost pure white. And then his skin would be kind of like a light gray because his skin is obviously not as white as the jacket. So if the jacket's white, then his skin can't be white. It has to be gray, right? His teeth would probably be pretty white because that's almost as white as the jacket. So you have to think about all those relations. So what I would do is probably just like color in all the darkness. Like for the jacket, I would just lay it in there very quickly because you're gonna have to layer it to get it as dark as it needs to be. So at first, you just kind of color it in almost like it's like a coloring book to just lay it down there. And then same with the hair. Definitely go in the direction of the way the hair is growing. So it's not going to help you to just color it in that way. Like definitely do it in a directional way, but just make it dark. And then I think I actually am going to switch to a regular pencil to do the skin tone. So I'm eventually going to make the hair even darker and same with the jacket, but it comes with stages. So for the skin tone, it needs to all be a gray tone, right? Because like I said, his skin is not as white as his shirt. So what I do is I make the whole thing gray and I smudge it and I blend it with the eraser. Like I basically work it to get it all kind of like a gray tone by erasing a little bit, blending a little bit, bringing it back. You have to just like rub it so that it's not too scribbly. Because at this stage, as you're starting to shade, this is when you want the scribbliness to go away. Unless, I mean, if you're going for like a more expressionistic, sketchy look, you can leave it. But like this drawing that I made, but obviously you can't really see the strokes very much. At the beginning stage, it looked like this, but then as I go, I smooth all that out. So I would be starting to do that right now.
I think Benita has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, so I can't hear you, or how? Can you take yourself off mute and ask the question? Oh, you don't know how. Okay, so hold that sign up again. Let me see what it says. How do you get the mouth to, can you hold it up more? I can't see it. To smile. How do you get the mouth to smile? So you just need to make it wide. You have to make it wide. And it's like curved a little bit. So let's look at the shape, or maybe my drawing is actually more clear. It's a very wide, stretched out. You have to, so like when I'm not smiling, right, my mouth is this wide, right? When I smile, it gets that wide. So it basically adds like half an inch on either side. So you need to make it wide and stretched out. So the top lip is like stretched like this. And then this is like the bottom lip, like that. That's kind of like a cartoon version, but that might help you, that it's stretched and it's got like a, you know, an arc. And the top lip is pretty straight across, but then the bottom lip is really arched. And then you definitely can't ignore these cheek creases, because it looks really weird to have somebody smiling, but then their cheeks aren't in a smile. That's like, sometimes that's an easy mistake to make. If you just leave this out, it would look almost like bad Photoshop or something. So going back to this, I'm just kind of like laying it in. Let me know if you want me to look at your smile, if you want to like hold it up once you work on it a little bit more. I'm continuing to just gray his face out to make him all kind of like a gray color, except for the teeth. And so I'm just smudging, maybe doing a little bit of erasing. So now it's all getting to like a kind of a gray tone. I don't know if you guys can see that. On the screen, it still looks kind of white. I can maybe make it a little bit darker, but you might have to just like take my word for it that it's kind of gray. And then once I start adding the darker tones, it'll get even grayer. And then obviously, since I'm starting to gray the face more, then I need to make the beard and the hair darker to make it relative, you know? That's why it's good to just kind of like work it all together. It's really hard to do a drawing where you're like, oh, I'm gonna do the eyes and make them perfect and then move on to the nose and make that perfect. That's very difficult. It's just much better to work on it all together.
Oh, there we are.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna go back to making the hair a little darker. Another reason to do it a little bit at a time is like so that your hand doesn't get too tired. Because like to get the hair as dark as it needs to be, it's like it takes a lot of pressure. I don't actually have to press as hard because I'm using this colored pencil, but with regular pencil, you have to layer it and press really hard to get it that black. So it's kind of good to like do a layer and then do something else and then come back to it so that your hand doesn't start to cramp.
With the hair, are you just drawing like lines?
Yeah, I'm pretty much just like scribbling, but in the direction of the hair. So not random, like obviously his hair, it's got like a swoop. It's grows. This is his part. Like you can't really see the line of the part, but you can see that his hair is parted that way and then it swoops over. So
It probably would have been helpful if we'd had made a copy because it's so hard to see.
so didn't she send you? I thought somebody sent you actually the image.
Well, yeah, but
No?
I didn't realize I should have a copy in front of me. It would have been easier.
Or yeah, or you could have it on your phone if you just get it out on your phone.
Well, this was in the trash,
Oh,
so it wasn't on my phone. I couldn't get it on my phone.
it was in the trash in your email?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, can't you just open it anyway? And like, you could just open it and then see.
Yeah. It didn't come out on my phone. On my computer, it was in trash. So
Yeah.
so I didn't have it. So I'm just kind of having to get really close to kind of see what it is. Not that it would help my drawing, but it would have been.
I mean, I guess if you're really desperate, you could just Google search on your phone. If you just Google search this guy, John Krasinski, some good news, this image comes up under image search. But I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, again, the idea is just to learn about the face. Like nobody's expecting you to make it look just like this guy.
Now, okay, to get the right proportions, I have a hard time understanding how you do that.
Well, I do it a lot by lining things up. Like proportions are kind of math, right? You know, so you think what lines up. Like that's why I did the axis line. How does this bisect in terms of proportions of the face? Like you can measure from the eye to the hairline is equidistant to from the eye to the bottom of the mouth. So we can measure, is mine right? From here to here is the same as from here to here.
Oh.
That seems about right.
Oh, I didn't, okay.
Yeah.
So is it best to start off with, would it be easier just to start off with dividing the face?
Well, that's what I was kind of having you do with the axis lines, like the lines for the mouth and the lines for the eyes. But I mean, I don't want you, like proportion is mathematical, but it's also not math class. So it's like, it's a delicate balance. If you get too much about thinking about it, just like some equation, that's really gonna kind of mess you up. Like I want you to think like generally, like how does this relate to that? So you can just do it like with your pencil and like how does that relate to that? How does this relate to that? You can do it. There's so many different relationships that you can't really make a box for all of them, you know, because yeah, you can measure from here to there. You can also measure from here to here. You can measure, oh, is the ear too big? Like the ear is just as long as, the ear is almost the exact same length as the mouth. So if it's not, you know that either your ear is too big or your mouth is too big. So since you can pretty much like relate any part of the face to any other part of the face, there's not really an exact equation or way to do it. So you should, as you're doing the whole thing, be always checking. Like as I'm going, I'm feeling like I don't think I made his chin long enough. That's why his face looks a little shorter. So I'm gonna bring down his chin. He's got more beard and like more chin happening. So I'm gonna adjust that, which might mean like I haven't really finished the shirt, but I probably need to bring the shirt line down because there is a space in between the beard and the shirt. You do see a bit of neck. So as you're going, you're constantly adjusting and constantly stepping back and checking and seeing what feels right. I think also I need to bring this up. I think he's a little bit more hunched than I have him. The shoulder is higher. If you do like as an exercise, obviously we're not doing this here, but if in terms of proportion, just like if it's something that you want to try at home on your own, and I don't know if maybe in the future we could do a class on it, but like, you know, you could use a grid as a tool, you know, where you basically grid the paper and then you grid this paper and then that's going to create a map. Some people might think about that as like cheating a little bit though. So like as when you're learning, you don't want to always do that because then you're not really seeing, but it could be like a good exercise if you want to try it on your own to like, because that pretty much is a tool for getting exact proportions and like artists have used it for centuries. So it gets hard because there really isn't that much shading on his face. It's so flat because of the way the picture is. You really have to look at it. I mean, it would help if you guys were looking at the image. I do see some shading like that shapes these cheek muscles and shapes the nose. So I will draw that in and you guys can kind of like copy me even if you can't really see it on the image. I'm sort of exaggerating it in my mind a little bit so that we're like shading a little, we're drawing something. Make eyebrows darker. Then the eyes, obviously there is this bright white highlight. So you could erase, how I usually do that is I'll like erase a spot for that or I'll leave a spot for it depending on how I want to do it. And then I draw, I like color around it. So in order to get that really bright highlight, you have to make the eyes pretty dark. And he has, I mean, it looks like he has like dark brown eyes. They're not like black, but this is a black and white photo. So they're going to read picture. They're going to read like almost black. And you need that contrast to get the white highlight. And then obviously all eyes have a dark iris that kind of like goes around the highlight. So, and that's going to make the highlight pop too. You have the highlights and you basically make like a dark halo around it. And then also, you know, eyes get darker at the edges too. They have like the sort of spokiness in the middle and then the darkness around edges, and you know, pretty much everybody's eye is like that, no matter what color you have. And since you don't have to worry about color, it makes it easy. So I like did the detail in his eyeball. I'm not really done with like the eye, what's it called, the eyelid. I'm going to define that. I'm going to actually look at like what the shape is. It's pretty flat on the top, his eyelid. That's partially because it's getting a little creased from the smiling, and then it curves down. Then you can only see a little bit of the, like, you know how there's like fleshiness in the corner of your eye. You can see a little bit of that, and then it comes up. There's only like a slight indication of eyelashes. You definitely want to be careful with eyelashes. Usually in portraits, you can hardly see them. And unless it's a woman that's like wearing fake eyelashes, you really just want to do like a really subtle indication. Otherwise, it'll look really cheesy and cartoony. And then you definitely want to do the crease because, of course, when he smiles, it's going to make his eyes wrinkle. And if this wasn't such a subdued photo, you'd see more of that, but you can see a little bit of it. And I'm actually just going to exaggerate it, like for the purposes of drawing. And now that that's gotten so dark, we need to make more darkness in the nose. So again, it's all relative. Like once you get one part dark, then it tells you you kind of have to go darker in another part. So it does get pretty dark on the edges of his nostril. And the nostril holes sort of like turn into the beard. In the photo, you can't really see an endpoint, like the beard. I mean, I'm pretty sure his beard isn't like growing right out of his nostril, but it almost looks like it, like there's no space. So it pretty much meets the nostril and it turns into the hole of the nostril. Now the lips need to get darker, definitely. Like right now I have the lips as white. If the skin is like a light gray, then the lips should be a dark gray, right? They're not as dark as the hair, of course, but they're definitely darker than the skin. He has, at least in this picture, he has pretty pigmented lips. Like, I mean, it doesn't look like he's wearing makeup or anything, but I think they're just like naturally kind of pigmented. So I'm gonna make them kind of dark and smooth it. And then I definitely need to I'm gonna start to form the teeth, but I'm still gonna wait till the very end to do any kind of like total defining of the teeth. And then I definitely need to make it darker underneath like the hole of the mouth where the teeth aren't. But as I'm doing that, I'll just like start to form the teeth. And then that goes up here. Then there's like definitely a shadow underneath the top lip. And this gets a little bit wonky because I'm using like a mixed medium now. You know, you guys are just using pencil and this wouldn't be my preference. And it's actually kind of an interesting effect using a black colored pencil and a graphite together. It's like kind of a cool effect, but it's not necessarily the most ideal for this type of portrait. So you just have to like bear with me a little bit with that. So I made like a shadow for the underneath of the lips. And then notice that there's a pretty dark shape here that defines the edge of his teeth, and then it goes into this crease of his mouth. So as you can see, I'm kind of drawing around the teeth. And if I draw around the teeth, eventually the teeth will be almost kind of like in the right spot. And then I'll just have to like draw the lines and add a little shading, and then they won't be so overwhelming, because I know teeth are really hard, and that's why I'm like leaving them till last. And he has like a shadow, but also his beard, like since his beard is patchy, like it, you know, he has this weird shape where it's like empty here, but then he has, this is like a mixture of a shadow and his beard, I think. That's why it's hard with beards, because you almost like don't know what is a shadow and what is hair. So you have to just like make sense of it. This should definitely get darker. And this should get darker, and I think it should come out a little more. Adjust the shape a little bit. Yeah, I think with mine, like, I think his hair needs to come up more. I think it would almost like run off the page, because he has more of a poop than I'm giving him. So I'm making adjustments too as I'm going along to see, you know, what's right and what's wrong. I mean, it's not like it really matters. Like if he has less poofy hair, it doesn't really matter. But I'm just trying to draw what I see.
Okay, with the teeth, you just kind of put in just a little lines, just lines, thin lines?
Yeah, I haven't really done that yet, actually. I did one line for the middle, but I think I could do that now. So yeah, really thin lines, because you really can't see that much definition. And I think if they're too thick, it'll look stupid. It's not stupid, but it'll just like look cheesy, you know, like cartoony. So just like really subtle lines. And then you can almost kind of like erase them a little bit, like smudge them together, so they're barely there, like, and then bring them back, and then like shade it so that, you know, like if you look at my smile, it's gonna get darker here. Like the light is hitting this part, but this part is more in shadow. So it should be darker on the corners and lighter in the middle. But you sometimes have to just like play around with the teeth, like erase them, draw them back in, like try to just get it right until it looks right, because, you know, it's hard to make them not look like dentures. But then make sure, pay attention to, so I haven't really done that yet. Right now, the bottom line of the teeth is like basically a perfect line, but obviously teeth have like points and they're not like a perfect line. So once you have the general shape in, then you can go back, and this is where it would definitely help to have the image in front of you to really define, okay, so it points, it comes up here, and then his canine teeth are more pointed, and then it's like jagged edges, you know? That's what's gonna make it start to look a little bit less like dentures and more like actual teeth. But that just kind of takes some playing around with. But in general, I would say make them more subtle. Like in this drawing, like this got pretty a little garish in terms of the teeth, especially because I'm using this dark pencil. But in my drawing that I did as the demo, as you can, even though this is a printed out, like in the actual drawing, you can hardly see the lines of the teeth. It's really subtle. And I did play around with it a lot. I think they were darker at one point, and I was just like, that looks really cartoony. So I kind of erased them a little. So if I was doing this in regular pencil, like I would use a really dark pencil to do this stuff. You know how pencils have like 6B is the darkest pencil, and then there's 2B or HB, which are lighter. I would be able to blend this more since I'm using this when I smear it with my finger. It doesn't really smear that much, but that would be my technique. Like to do, maybe I could go back to the pencil to smear it a little bit. Like to do the jacket. I mean, that shouldn't really be your concern right now, but just to show you, to get it to like a really nice dark gray even tone, I would just keep layering, like layer, smear, layer, smear. And then as it gets to like a nice even tone, that's when you can start defining the line. But because I'm using this pencil that I can't really smear, mine's gonna end up like, it's gonna have to stay a little bit more scribbly because I can't really get to that solid zone. Anybody want to show me what they've done so far? Oh, that's not bad. I mean, you got the smile in. Yeah.
What else could I have done to improve it, please?
I think you can do more 3-dimension, like under the eyes, like a little bit more of the creases and a little bit more, like it's hard to see, but it is there. Like even to just look at your own face when it smiles, or like my face when it smiles, even though my cheeks are like kind of bigger than his or like different shaped, like that it just gets these like wrinkles and a little bit more of this padding underneath. If you can see that, like really up close, that he has this like fold, which that'll make it a lot more 3-dimensional if you get that. And if you kind of like exaggerate it, make it even more than what you see.
Okay.
So dark.
Yeah, the smile is really tricky. Like, I think it's a good exercise because it's kind of rare, I feel like, in drawing classes that you draw people smiling. You know, like in my entire art school, like when I went to 4 years of art school, I don't think I ever drew anybody smiling because, you know, it's like you get like a model or something and they're just standing there serious. But it's actually a really good exercise to draw somebody smiling because it's challenging. Anybody else want to, or did you guys both showed me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, you got like a good, that really looks like the shape of his head, like this sort of long oval shape. I like that. I think you just need to do more shading. And as I said, it is hard because you can't see a lot of shading, but there is like shadows underneath the eyes. There's shadows that kind of like form the cheek. I mean, I kind of exaggerated it in my drawing. And of course, obviously it's not like my drawing is perfect. It doesn't look exactly like him, but it's like generally. So there's a shade, there's a shadow that comes down here. I see this as a shadow. I was starting to do that. Like I see it as darker here. And I think if you work on this more, it would really help. Download the image or Google search the image if you can't find it. If you just Google search John Krasinski, Some Good News, it's on the first page of Google image search. If you download it and then just go into your phone and up the contrast, just manipulate it, I think that'll really help you, because then, and also make it black and white. I think if you download the image, make it black and white, and up the contrast, you're going to see all these things in the face that you didn't see before.
How is a child's face different than an adult's?
It's like rounder. Usually the features, like the eyes in relation to the face, are bigger. And even though it still has the same structure, so even when a child's face smiles, it still gets creases in its eyes and creases here. But obviously an adult's face, depending on how old they are, gets more creases, you know? But I mean, there's not like a drastic difference, you know, we're all humans. It's just more, they're definitely more circular. Like, you're not going to get a child's face that is as oval as his. I don't think any child's faces would be that oval unless they were almost slightly like deformed or something. But he also has a particularly long face, and plus I think his beard makes it look longer than it actually is almost. Like, if I was to adjust mine and work on it more, I didn't make this face long enough, but it's just a demo. Like, this one's better, but I think because his face is so long, I kind of might have, like, in my head corrected it a little bit, which is, you know, not really right. So if I were to keep working on this, I'd probably honestly like maybe like move the mouth down a bit and make the whole thing a little bit longer. But it's all part of, like, you know, the process. But I definitely do see shadows. Like, what I'm doing right now, so you guys can see, I'm just exaggerating the shadows I see. So I see a shadow going down his nose. There's almost a weird shadow across his nose because it's like a highlight here. There's a shadow here in the eye socket, and it's a little bit darker here. So I do see some shadows. And then, you know, you can pull stuff out with your eraser. So especially if you download a more high contrast version of this, you can notice that you might want to pull out some highlights. So you can take your eraser, like I see a highlight on his forehead, right? That is like, it's subtle, but it's there. So I might want to take my eraser and pull out that highlight. Same, there's like a highlight on his cheek. There's even like kind of highlights in his eyes, like above his eyes and there, and there's a highlight at the end of his nose. You can also, with hair, like once, if you get it to a more solid state, everything keeps falling. You can use your eraser to pull out highlights. Sometimes an eraser like this is kind of, doesn't really have an eraser yet, but left, but just a school pencil eraser is good because it's more like a point. And then you can like draw lines with it. That's kind of good for hair. That's also good when you get into detail of just like, you can kind of like draw with the eraser. So it might be good to just invest in just like, you know, go to whatever, CVS or something, and pick out a couple of just school pencils, because the eraser is really good for that.
What kind of eraser?
Just like a school pencil eraser to have like a hard point. Like this eraser doesn't really have it. It's almost gone, but you know, like when they're new, they're like squared off, and it's like this isn't very pointy. So this is better for like broad areas of eraser, but it's not good for like a detail. If you're just trying, you know, this is really good to like get a detail. anybody want to show me? We have about 8 minutes left, so we can just like keep working.
I couldn't really see the shadows or
Yeah, no, that looks good though. I mean, it's kind of like stylized, but like I almost kind of see that actor in that. Like it kind of almost looks like him in a way, you know? Can you pull it back a little bit?
yeah, it's that mouth
Yeah.
I have a hard time with.
You did a good job. I think it's a little not quite as wide as his, but I think it's good. I think it's definitely like just keep going with it. I would say just try to get the darks, like use the practice to get you got it pretty dark, but you can like I see that you started on the jacket, like maybe keep going with that. And I think it's okay if in the end it's a little bit stylized. Like, yeah, his eyes are pretty big. Like you definitely made the eyes bigger than they are in reality, but it looks kind of cool though. It just looks like a style.
Okay. His eyes are too big.
Well, it's because his eyes are so squished because he's smiling. Plus, I think his eyes are a little small in general. Can you hold it a little closer? Yeah, you know, yours is kind of looks like him too. Like, cause you have like the shape, and then you've got this sort of schnoz that he has that kind of like full. Yeah, he definitely has a big nose. So I see the resemblance in yours too. I think you just definitely need to get more shading, and I think it would really help you to get the photo and up the contrast and look at it, because I can see that you're like, well, what am I supposed to shade if I don't even see any shading? So I think you guys could both probably keep working on it. With these things, like you never really expect, like you're not going to get like a totally finished portrait in an hour and a half. But I think you got like you got really far in it.
That's fun. I don't think I've ever drawn a face before.
Oh, really? Well, that's pretty good for your first try.
You really have to look.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, this is. You mentioned something about the pencils, the numbers. How did they?
Yeah. Okay, so if you get like a pencil set, like at the art store, you don't well, I'm prefacing this, like, you don't have to get a full pencil set, because like I have a pencil set with like 20 different pencils, and it goes from, so the H's are lighter and the B's are darker. So it goes like 2H, 4H, 6H, 8H, and like 2H is actually darker and 8H is lighter. Then in this direction, it goes 2B, 4B, 6B, 6B is the darkest and 2B is the lightest. So that's how it is in like a set of like 20 pencils. I usually only use like, honestly, like 4 or so. I usually start with really only like 3. I usually start with a 2B to sketch. So that's already a fairly dark pencil. It's like a little darker than the middle, just because I don't like it to be so light that I can't see it. And then I move on to a 4B as I'm starting to get more into it and like starting to lay in like midtones. And then I use a 6B or sometimes even an 8B, like depending, some of the sets have 8Bs, some don't, to get all the darknesses in. But I think if you go to an art store and get the individual pencils, I would recommend you get a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B, and you should be good with that.
Thank you.
And yeah, so I told you about the school pencil eraser. This is a good eraser, and then you want to have one of those like gummy erasers too. Oh yeah, I did bring it. So usually they're gray. This one that I have is yellow, but they're like this, like they look like bubble gum, but usually gray. And they come in like a square, but then you open it and then it's like bendable. And what's good about this is that you can form it. It's not hard. So like I said, that's why this is good for like hair and stuff. But if you just want to get like, say there's like a little tiny highlight at the tip of the nose, you can just like dab it. Or you can mold it into like a thicker area and use it to dab like a bigger thing.
Oh, okay.
So this is really useful. You definitely want to get one of these.
Now, if you had something that was good, then how do you keep it from smearing?
I mean, pencil is not like charcoal. It doesn't smear that easily. Like usually my drawings, I just put in like, if they're small enough, I'll just put them in like a binder, you know, like that you get at like Office Max, where it's just like the plastic sleeves. If it's bigger, you could put it in a frame, or you could make a plastic sleeve with like cellophane. They have that spray stuff, but that's more like if you do a charcoal drawing, it's totally necessary for you to spray it. Otherwise, it'll just become a mess. But with pencil, it's like you don't have to spray it.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we're pretty much at the end. We're at 5. So if you guys want any further advice or anything, if you're good.
Oh, this was really fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was fun. So thank you for coming, and we'll probably do another celebrity portrait like a couple of weeks from now. So,
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome. Bye.